Hi folks, welcome to the stream. I've got my new setup now, so as you can see, you can both see me and what I'm doing, which should help a little bit when I'm up here trying to do a tiny little part and not paying attention to where I am located in relation to the actual camera. Plus, I can also go ahead and do this, which lets me be on the big screen and my hands down here should I ever need to. And I have a few other little toys now for the stream. I hope you enjoy the improvements that I'm constantly making. And if you have any suggestions for how I can improve it further in the future, feel free to let me know either in the chat or send me an email. So today's stream is going to be a introduction to Gunpla, what you need to know to get started, what sort of tools you need, little beginner tricks and stuff. Uh, I've gotten a lot of folks letting me know that they've been turned on to Gunpla from the stuff that I do, the works I post, and these streams and whatnot. So I want to try to help those folks because I love getting more and more people into this hobby. It's one of my favorite sort of things to do, so getting more people excited about it too is great. And if you happen to notice that I just keep constantly looking over to one direction, that's because of where my monitor is located in relation to where the camera is located. I I apologize for that being kind of weird. So to get started with, I'm going to go over scales a little bit for Gunpla. Principally, what you see me working on in the streams are 1/144 scale kits. These are always high grades. There are high grades of other scales, but all 144s are going to be a high grade kit. And I'll get into more explanations about what high grade and master grade and whatnot all means as I go through the video. So that's a high grade 1/144. Uh, this, in comparison, is a high grade 1/100. Uh, the high grades, like I said, can be 1/144 or 1/100. There are also bigger ones as well. Um, the main thing for the 1/100 scale, though, are master grades, which, when it's not an Iron Blood Orphans kit, the main difference between a high grade and a master grade kit at this scale is that the master grades always have internal frames, um, which gives it a bit more support and a bit more detail because you can have different armor plates can move a bit more. They can do a lot more with the kit when it's got that internal frame. The Iron Blood Orphan kits introduced having the internal frame for all of their kits. So even the 1/144s have an internal frame to some degree, which is a nice little gimmick for that line. Um, and then the biggest of the standard kits, there are exceptions of course, are the 1/160 kits. Uh, Typically, you're going to find these in the perfect grade scale. There are a handful of high grades that are this scale, and a few of what is called the glorious grade. They've only made two actual mobile suits in that scale, one of which is this Dom here, and the other one is a Goof. But they haven't been reproduced in a number of years, so that's not too relevant, to be honest. So I like working with the 1/144s a lot because they're smaller. You can do a lot more scene work with them, and that's a lot of what I do is dioramas and just little mini scenes. Um, you can of course do that with all of them, uh, but it gets a lot harder to do it when it's something this big. I do have a project that I've been working on with a 1/160 kit, not 1/160, 1/160. Ugh, it's a bit of a tongue twister that I will be unveiling at the end of next month because it's for a competition and I can't show anything for it until it's done. But I'm really excited. It looks really great. And if I turn my chair just right, you might catch a glimpse of it. So yeah. Uh, so now I've gone over shown you the scales. There are also 1/48th scale kits. Um, there those are usually referred to as mega size, and those are the biggest traditional kits. They are high grades. They're mostly empty shells of armor. with a little bit of articulation and some detail. Um, but they're not too great, to be honest. And then there are the amazing, because of their size, 112 scale uh, Gundam and Zaku kits. Those are technically retail display statues. They are, though, model kits. You do have to assemble them. They are articulated and they do have lights and sound effects. They will run you 3 grand to 4 grand each if you can track one down. Um, I would love to have one, but I don't. If I did, I would totally have it standing behind me here so you could see it as the my size Gundam. Okay, so talking about grades for a second. High grade is the best starting point. When you want to get into Gundam, you want to pick up a high grade. They're going to be simplest, which I don't want to say really simplest because that kind of makes it sound like, oh, so simple, whatever. But they're really, it's a good starting point, and even with all the stuff I do, I still just love building high grades. They go together pretty quickly once you get the hang of it. They've got great articulation. A lot of the modern kits have a lot of great detail with them. You can do some really fun stuff with them. Um, with high grades, though, there are two distinct types of high grade. There is just high grade, and then there are high grade double letter series. What I mean by that is if you look on the box here where it says HG for high grade, then there's also Universal Century. So this is an HGUC kit, so an HG double letter. You'll also find HGAC for Gundam Wing kits, or HGCE for Gundam Seed, um, or HGBF for Gundam Build Fighters. Those double letter kits mean that the kit has a bit more detail and a bit more care put into the actual design of the model kit itself compared to something that is just a high grade. They've stopped really producing kits that are just high grades. Um, well, they still manufacture them. You can buy old kits from 1970s if you want to get those, but they've stopped making new ones that are like that since, I want to say, Gundam Seed. Um, the problem with those is they often lack articulation, they lack detail, they're going to be proportioned weirdly, and they may not be actually within scale with one another. Um, we were a friend of mine and was just looking at the EZ8 kits and checking out the old 90s EZ8 high grade and trying to compare it to the HGUC that came out in the 2000s. And the head on it is just terribly proportioned. It looks like somebody squished it, like it's one of those in between frames that you're never actually supposed to see, where the animation is just kind of stretched a little bit. Um, yeah, so they're not great. The next level up for that, going back to the classic American marketing for Gundam levels, are master grades. Now, master grades feature a full internal skeleton. They're going to have more detail. They may have some gimmicks to them. They may require things like screws. They may have electronics. There are a number of them that have LED either included with the kit or as an optional add-on that you can track down. Like from the G Gundam series, you can actually get a LED hand for the God and Shining to let it do God Finger or Burning Finger, um, which I have and I can't wait to put together. But there's also stuff like the Gundam RX-78 Origin or the 3.0 that actually has one of the little tiny Gundam LEDs for its head. And there are a few other kits that are like that have those. And yes, Tom, I have a Gundam Spiegel. I picked it up at the Gundam Hobby Labs a couple of months ago. um, so you could, if you've got good amount of modeling experience, either doing tabletop work or doing other model kits, you could jump straight to master grade. There's not much more complexity between a master grade and a high grade. It's just there's going to be more weird stuff going on. Like a lot of the mid 90s to early 2000s kits have screws for the legs to kind of hold the joints a little bit tighter. I know the Easy 8 is one of those, and I'm pretty sure the G Gundam kits all have those as well. Um, so that's just the fun of, oh, look, I get to find a tiny precision screwdriver to put this kit together now. Uh, and then, sir, not appearing fully in frame, this is a perfect grade. As you can tell from it not being able to fit in my camera's window completely at one time, it is huge. Uh, those are the 160 scale kits, along with the glorious grades and some high grades. Um, Perfect grades will feature a full internal skeleton like master grades. They almost all have some amount of lighting to them. Uh, Generally, at the minimum, the eyes will light up with a LED or two. I know the Wing Zero has a LED for its chest, and then the Exia has a full separate kit that you can buy that is the lighting version, where like every part of it illuminates and glows and does all kinds of cool shiny stuff. Um, there in the 60 scale, there is also the Glorious grade, which is what the Dom I showed was. It is more of a high grade than a perfect grade. It is pretty much just an empty shell. There are lights for everything in it though, and that's the big draw for the glorious grade kits is that they feature a lot of lighting components. So all the verniers light up, the chest laser lights up, the eye lights up, and it's the same with the goof. The handgun lights up. Um, I would not recommend starting with a perfect grade. You can if you're crazy, but I would really honestly say high grades are the best place to start. Uh, if you do want to get into a perfect grade, like you want to make the jump from master grade to perfect grade, pick up the Strike or the Strike Rouge. Uh, More likely the Strike Rouge because it comes with the Isle Strike and the Skygrasper. And if you don't like the pink, you can always paint it. Um, Otherwise, try to avoid anything pre-strike until you've gotten a bit more of a grasp with things. Uh, Before the improvements that they made with the strike, the perfect grades have a big problem with supporting their arms when they're holding anything and just staying upright. The Wing Zero can't stay upright. The wings on its back just drag it down, and it's a nightmare trying to pose it or do anything with it, really. I'm going to talk about two other grades now. First is real grade. Don't buy real grades. Real grades are bad. Real grades will make you sad. They're awful. Just just awful. They look pretty. They look enticing. They're the same size as high grade 1144s. They feature an internal skeleton. They fall apart at the gentlest notice. A slight breeze will just cause this thing to fall right the fuck apart. I would show you the one that I've built of this and show you how it's fallen apart, but I can't even get it across the room without it falling apart. It's really bad. I will honestly never build another real grade because of how terrible they are. Uh, if you are going to build one of these, expect to have to glue everything because it's otherwise just going to be a freaking hand grenade, and it's not going to be any fun for anybody involved. The last grade that I'm going to talk about, I don't actually have a kit for to show off, but those are RE1100s. They are the answer to we want to make a master grade of this kit, but we know it's not going to sell very well. So what they did was they started creating basically 1/100 high grade, master grade in betweens. They feature a partial internal skeleton. They feature all the details of a master grade, but they're not anywhere near as complex as a master grade. They are going to still be mostly hollow with a little bit of a skeleton here and there. So you get sort of fun niche suits like the Hama Hama and the Dieja for that scale. Um, and they're a good jumping point between high grades and master grades, really. Good starting point, too, to be honest, if you wanted to pick up one of those suits. Though, I will, again will say, pick up a high grade HGUC kit. Those are the best place to start. Pick up a Zaku. The Origin line is a fantastic line of kits to start with. They have lots of great details. They do wonderful little things with the kits, and they go together in a breeze. They're great. Pick up an HGUC Origin Zaku, and you'll be happy as for a starting point. Even as a midpoint, or you've been building for years, just pick up the Origin kits. They're so fantastic. So a tip and a trick when you're buying Gunpla. Let's go back to the other camera. So, when you look at the box, the nice little box, on the side of every kit is a barcode, which if I can get my camera to focus on it, turn off autofocus so I can make it focus. There we go. You can see back here are 4 digits, 2500. That is the Japanese yen price of this kit. So you know now what this kit retailed for in Japan. Now, when you go to buy Gunpla in a store, you will find it priced for random amounts sometimes. I've seen stuff as low as $2 more and as high as $50 more for a freaking master grade. Some stores really love overcharging for Gunpla for some reason. So to make sure you don't get ripped off, look at the yen price, figure about 100 yen to a dollar. It's not that, I know, but it's close. It's close enough for guesswork. And that will tell you if the kit is priced reasonably or if the person selling it to you is trying to rip you off. It's good to factor in, $5 to $10 for the shipping costs for going from Japan. But if they're ordering from Bluefin, then it should be pretty close to the yen price in the States at least. So for like this master grade, paid $27. It's 2,500 yen on the kit. Perfectly fine. Most HGUC kits are going to run you between 1,000 and 2,000 yen, so $10 to $20, and that's a nice cheap starting point and continuing point really. There are also the SD kits, the little kind of tiny, big-headed kits. Tabletop gamers like to refer to them as chibis, even though that's nowhere near the right term. Those are good starter kits as well. They're kind of fun. They go together like in 20 minutes, and you could do some really fun things with them. I have one of those as well that I will be showing off next month, but competition entry, can't show it now. Though you can kind of see it back here, all the way in the corner there. There you go. See it? Hiding away. So, you know the grades, you know the scales, and you know how to tell how much they cost. You want to put it together. What do you need for that? Very simple. You need some tools. So I'm going to, again, go back over to the other camera. And if you look here, as I tilt the camera up, these are my tools. I do have a few more tools than just this, but these are the main ones I use. Like clippers, files, knives, saw, pliers, ruler. Standard tool affair stuff. Not a big surprise, really. If you've done model kits before, if you've done tabletop gaming kits, then you probably have some of this stuff. Bring this back down. The clippers that I use are God hands. They are flush cutters. As you can see that they've got very thin, sharp blades on them. These are professional cutters and are very expensive. I don't recommend them for starting. I love these clippers, and I would never tell somebody who's starting out to go buy these clippers because they are too expensive for getting started, for when you're going to make mistakes and you're going to break stuff. Instead, go to Walmart, go to Harbor Freight, go wherever you can get tools, buy the cheapest pair of clippers you can. These are $3 from Harbor Freight. They work just fine when you're getting started. They're a good starting tool. They got a good grip on them because you want something that has a nice grip to get started with, to be able to cut with. The other thing you need is a good knife. Again, you can go buy one of these cheaply from Tamiya, from Harbor Freight, from Walmart, wherever. Get a hobby knife. They're cheap. They're going to be like $10. Get some blades. You're done. Those are the two tools that you need to get started with. I have all these other tools. These are the two that you need to get started with. These will let you build any Gundam. Well, you may need a screwdriver. These will let you build pretty much any Gundam you could want. The main difference between using my God hands and these clippers is these will not work on metal. These will not work on resin. They will break on either of those. They're only meant for high impact polystyrene and colored ABS, which are the two types of plastic that Gundam model kits are generally made out of. When you're cutting parts off the frame with these compared to these, you'll get a bit more of a nub with the cheaper clippers. But it's still just something that you can clean up with the knife. You could use sanding paper if you want, but a knife will clean it up pretty well. And when you're getting started with kits, you're going to have nubs on it. It happens. Everybody starts with nubs. As you build more, you'll get more in the hang of taking care of those, removing them, cleaning them up, and your kits will get better and better as you learn with those techniques. You shouldn't plan on having to do huge dioramas and amazing scene work and tons of painting just to get started with. Just put the kit together, enjoy it, have fun. They look great. Just assembled bare plastic, they look fantastic. The next stage up from here, you would want to get a good dull coat to spray your parts with when they're cut off. This will remove the plasticky sheen from kits. And at that point, you can either leave it, you could panel line it, or you could paint it. Though if you're going to paint it, you're going to want to use some primer and some other things. And that will probably be a different lesson for getting into Gunpla painting and whatnot. But again, these tools, you can go buy cheap ones. You don't have to buy the biggest and most expensive tools just to get started. Get the cheap stuff. They work great. So if you've cut the parts out, you've started assembling, and you're like, wait a second, all this stuff, it's in Japanese. What's going on here? How am I supposed to know what anything is? And here I am not fully prepared. So yeah, all the kits, they're in Japanese. Big deal. Pull some light in, get this shown a little bit better. As you can see, they all still use standard numbers, same numbers we use. You'll see letters as well. There's nothing in the actual kanji and katakana and hiragana that you need to know. There are symbols that are kind of handy to know, but they're pretty self-explanatory. Glue this, clip here, do it twice. These are stickers. These three here are decals, and then these are all just different assembly tasks. And when you're looking at the actual parts on the sheet, you can figure out what they are from context clues pretty easily. These kits go together really easily, really well, especially if you pick up an HG double letter series kit. Drop my water. So yeah, that's your basic intro to Gunpla. When you want to get a little bit farther beyond just snap building kits, you're going to want to look into stuff to use for seam building which is where you'll have a seam on a kit that isn't necessarily a panel line. I need to have somebody over here to just keep changing my camera back and forth. So if you look on the back of the vernier thrusters, there's a seam line right here. This part should be flush completely, but it's not because of the way the kit's made. That's just something that you would want to clean up, which you can use a variety of techniques to do, and I'll have a full video on that really in the future as well. But for that, I use Mr. Dissolve Putty. I'm a big fan of the Mr. Hobby products as well. They are a Japanese hobby brand of tools and goodies. They do the Mr. Color line of paints, the Mr. Putty, Mr. Mark Softer, etc. Just various little hobby tools. You can get those from HobbyLink Japan, who's also my go-to for Gunpla in general. I really enjoy just buying my Gundams straight from Japan and having them come to me in a couple of days. Works out pretty well. Otherwise, files. I if a variety of files to either clean up nubs or to sand down a part or to break apart if I need to pop parts apart after assembling part apart. I have the Tamiya ones in addition to some cheap ones from Harbor Freight. The Tamiya ones are infinitely better than the cheap ones from Harbor Freight, but the cheap ones from Harbor Freight were cheap. Other simple little tools are toothpicks and Q-tips. You use Q-tips to clean up washes when you're doing panel lines or to do effects or to do a number of little cleaning aspects of things. And then toothpicks I really like for when I'm gluing a part down. I put some of the glue into a little dish and then use a toothpick to apply it so I don't accidentally squeeze too much on the glue bottle and get it all over the place, because that's a bad time. These little dishes you get from a food supply store or and then I sneeze on stream. Excuse me. Dusty in here. You get these from a food supply store, grocery store, anywhere that sells like paper plates and whatnot. You can get these little cups. You can also get them off Amazon, which is actually where I usually get them from. They're super cheap. I use these to put my paint in when I'm mixing it or just pulling it out of a dropper bottle. I put glue into this and get it with toothpicks out. These are what I use for like pallets, basically. They work great. They're cheap. They're disposable, and you don't have to worry about it. And paper clips. Paper clips you use for pinning. So if you have a part that, like say you have a hip joint that breaks and you need to fix it, you drill a little tiny hole through the hip joint, you put a piece of paper clip in it, and you put the part back together, and that paper clip holds it in there as long as you've glued it in. Which, to do that, you will also need a pin vise and drill little thing. You can use this to drill holes for pinning, for drilling holes into your kits as bullet holes, or just screwing up the armor in any general way that you like. I got this one from Citadel. It's probably the only thing from Citadel I would actually buy because I needed it and it was overpriced, but I needed it right then and there. You can get these from most hobby shops, and you can pay much less than I did. Otherwise, that is pretty much my tool set. I do have some sandpaper and whatnot, but like the files, you don't necessarily need them. I only ever use them on specific things where I need to clean up something like a nub and it's just not working out with a knife. Any questions from the comments section over there? Looks like Tom has been quiet. Dr. Hanks, do you have anything to say? Any questions? Of course, if you have questions in the future, if you're watching this video later on YouTube, you're welcome to either email me or PM me or send me a message through the Isekai Heavy Industries Facebook page or Twitter or wherever you want to poke me with a message. I'm happy to answer anything I can. Um, so yeah, that is a quick little intro to Gunpla. Uh, if you decide to start using um, Mr. Putty or uh, airbrush paints or anything really, um, that's more of a spray sort of chemical. Mr. Dissolve Putty isn't a spray, but it's very fumy. You want to make sure you're wearing a respirator. Just one of these. Uh, if you can smell the chemical, you're breathing the chemical, which means it's getting into your lungs, which means bad time eventually. It may not affect you right away. It may affect you right away. It may not affect you for a number of years, but it's better that if you are going to be doing it, wear a respirator, protect your lungs for the best. Let's see. Tom is asking, I've been trying to find my Gundam show watch list so I can show a friend what shows I have that he needs to watch. Well, the answer to that question is all of them, of course. But in reality, Build Fighters and F91, Wing, you know, Tournay, the good ones. All of them. So yeah, this video went by a lot quicker than I thought it would. uh, I guess this is my, make sure to hit follow or like on the video on YouTube later. Definitely follow me on Twitch, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Patreon. They're all the same, Cyporian. Otherwise, it's Isekai Heavy Industries Facebook, which should be linked below as well. Thanks for dropping in, and I guess this will be a short stream for today.